Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Digital Benelux FP&A Board. Today we will talk about the art and science of FP&A storytelling. My name is Hans Gobin, and today I'll be your facilitator. Just to let you know, we have over 350 people joining our call today from 37 countries, but mostly from the Benelux area. So, what do we have in store for you today? So today we'll talk about art and science of FP&A storytelling. FP&A storytelling, what are the challenges and the best practices? We will hear about the power of FP&A visualization. How do we create value through FP&A storytelling? We'll hear of some case studies. The importance of technology in leveraging FP&A visualization, very important. Conclusions and recommendation, and then Q&A session at the end. A slide on what meetings we've had and the discussion subjects we've had in the Benelux area. Please read it at your own leisure. It is now a good time for me to start by introducing our great panelists we've put together today for you. So panelists, if you can put your webcam on and join me. And I would start by Simon. So our first speaker today will be Simon Alexander, who is FP&A Director at FedEx. Everybody knows FedEx. Simon has more than 30 years experience in various finance roles across geographies and in wide variety of topics, including strategy, talent development, performance management, project management, M&A, accounting and controlling, which is key FP&A. Simon joins us from Amsterdam today. He's an Amsterdam board member as well. And today he will talk to us about FP&A storytelling, the best practices and the challenges. Simon, hello to you and great to have you on the panel.
Good afternoon, Hans. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invite. Really looking forward to talking about a topic that is very dear to me on storytelling. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. Our next member of the panel is James Haley, who's VP Finance and Europe CFO at Nidec. Again, James has got lots of experience, more than 20 years in leadership across various industries and markets. Led teams in areas of accounting and controlling, again, FP&A, project management, M&A, due diligence, auditing and assurance and compliance. James is a member of our Zurich FP&A board, and today he joins us from Zurich as well. And today he will talk to us through the power of visualization and how best to use it. James, you're very welcome.
Hi, Hans. Many thanks to you, Hans and Larissa, for giving me this opportunity to speak today. Yes, it's a very important topic and looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Mutamari Duryasamy will be our third speaker today. She's currently Director Corporate Finance, leading the global controlling in Coty Incorporation, which is a US listed company. She started a career in Valeo in India in 2015, and then she moved on to Denmark, and is currently based out of Amsterdam in Netherlands. She's an all-rounder finance executive working in corporate, regional, as well as the plants itself. Of course, with special interest in FP&A. Mutu will today talk to us about how do we create value in finance in FP&A through storytelling. Hi, Mutu, you're very welcome.
Hi, Hans. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm happy to be part of this panelist, as well as this is one of the great topic. I think I'm really thankful for inviting me to talk in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mutu. And finally, our last panelist member is Michael Lingenfelder, who is FP&A head of FP&A product management at Unit 4. He joined Provero, Austria, 15 years ago as a consultant and has been part of their journey, FP&A journey, ever since. He's got broad experience and knowledge in consulting and FP&A. Michael joins us from Vienna today. Even though he's got a technology background, he's very passionate about storytelling and visualization. And today he will share with us how we can make the most of technology to help us in FP&A storytelling and visualization. Michael, you're very welcome.
Thanks a lot, Hans, for having me. Looking very much forward to our great session today.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, member of the panel. And of course, we've got a great panel with great presentations in store for you today. So thank you very much. If you can switch your webcam, I've got a couple more slides to go through before we start our full presentation. So moving on next, FP&A Trends Group, the projects and initiative. Just to highlight today, we're bringing together the Amsterdam and the Brussels board. And of course, you all know we've got 27 boards in 16 countries and over 4 continents. What we've also started to do at the request of our members is best practice workshop and FP&A consultancy. Very important, our webinar, what is the digital FP&A board? It is a 90 minutes webinar. We will share with you 4 polling questions. Your insight is very useful, so please vote on these. We have a Q&A interactive session for you as well. You can ask questions via chat box. You can start right from now, or you can ask after each presentation, and please direct it to the presenter you want them to answer. You can network directly with our presenters as well via LinkedIn. The presentation is available in handouts. You can download it now. You will also receive a copy of the recording and presentation within 2 days. And once we close the session, there is a service session for you to give us some feedback on how we can improve our next meeting. So please do that. It is a good time to share with you our technology partner and sponsor for the day, which is Unit 4. We all know Unit 4, global leader in enterprise cloud software for people-centric organizations. So thank you very much, Unit 4. And our global recruitment partner, which is Robert Half. Of course, we all again know Robert Half, one of the world's leading professional recruitment consultancies. Thank you both for sponsoring the event. Before I let the presenters start their presentation, I would like to share with you a couple of quotes from a couple of famous people on FP&A storytelling and visualization. Professor Hans Rosling, statistician and data visualization genius, shared this presentation with us where he's talking about, he tells a story of industrial revolution of 200 countries over 200 years in 4 minutes. And the amount of data that it involved is around 100,000. So for him, the key thing was, most of us need to listen to the music to understand how beautiful it is. But often that's how we present the statistic. We just show the notes. We don't play the music. So from him, we have to play the music. We have to be in it. The next slide I have is, we all can resonate with this very, very well. Of course, we all with a financial background. We can see here, you know, a new dashboard which has got all the KPIs on it, as you can see here on the far left. What is this about? This is a dashboard that tracks all the KPIs we have, and then suddenly somebody asked the question as to what's that KPI trending down to 0, which is the bottom last one on the right. It measures how well we understand them all. So the key thing here from Stephen Few, author and thought leader, is around, we need to find the signals in the data and learn to reduce the noise. So reducing the noise in the data, but also within us. And the other quote I have here for you is from Cole Nosbomer Knaflic, who is an author of storytelling and data. Please concentrate on the pearls, the information your audience needs to know, nothing more, nothing less. And today we'll talk about the 3 hard pillars of FP&A storytelling: narrative, visuals, and data. Without further ado, we move on to our storytelling element of the presentation. And to do that, we've got Simon Alexander, who is Director Field Finance FP&A Europe North at FedEx, and will talk to us about FP&A storytelling, challenges and best practice. Simon, the floor is yours. Ready when you are.
Thank you, Hans. Good afternoon. Let me just start with a quick introduction of myself, FedEx, and our FP&A teams. I'm Director of Field Finance in FedEx Express, covering the northern half of Europe. What's Field Finance? Just another name for FP&A. We support our operational teams and our representatives of finance in local country boards, committees, etc. FedEx consists of three main divisions: Express, Ground and Freight, where Express is the largest with a global annual turnover of nearly 36 billion. Apart from moving around 6.5 million packages every day with our 275,000 team members, FedEx Express operates 24/7, 365, and is also the world's largest cargo airline, operating around 680 aircraft to 650 airports worldwide. In Europe, our FedEx Express FP&A team consists of 4 directors, one for the north, one for the south, one for our network, and one in the center. We've got 180 FP&A professionals, of which my team account for around 50. On the next slide, I have included a quote. My story today will evolve around the 3 items mentioned in this quote: narrative, visuals, and data. And I'll talk about how combining these allows FP&A to fulfill our goal in life of influencing change. Let's move on to evolving as a FP&A storytelling. What's my story? Throughout my working life, I've always been more fascinated about the story behind the numbers than the numbers themselves. The numbers say it all, I often hear. Well, they don't, and only by adding a story to the numbers do you see the full picture and are able to use the numbers to add value in the decision-making process. My storytelling skills have evolved from storytelling to my teams, peers, and senior management, to executives, supervisory boards, and investors. Each audience brings the need for different techniques, different levels of detail, and different formality of the language used. Storytelling is not a case of one size fits all. It needs to be adapted. There are common traits and learnings I've gained from all audience and continue to do so on a daily basis. The success of FP&A in influencing change is directly related to our ability to convey the essence of a topic. We do this by creating a compelling story using the right facts or data, engaging stakeholders through clear communication, and enlightening our audience using relevant visualizations of data. As Michael will refer to later, the trend is towards self-service reporting utilizing dashboards with the potential addition of automated comments generated through logic. But often this type of storytelling doesn't get to the core of the topic. Human insights often provide more depth to the topic. My experience is that there's generally too little focus on the actual art and science of storytelling and more focus on creating dashboards as a means to tell a story. Storytelling is the primary tool in business partnering, and as FP&A, we must be masters of it. Listen to your audience, listen to feedback, learn from reactions, and anticipate potential questions. This will all help improve your storytelling skills. What feedback are you getting during your storytelling, both the verbal and non-verbal? Is the message being received as you intended? How do you adapt your storytelling, either during the presentation or for the next time? Should you skip certain parts or go into more details on others? Were there visuals that were misinterpreted? Did they actually support the story or just cause confusion? Was the right data used to support the story, or what was missing? In summary, what did you learn from the experience that will enable you to better convey your story next time? Listen, learn, and adapt to enhance the effectiveness of your storytelling. I think you'll agree with me that finance professionals are generally introverts, but don't let that get in the way of exploring your limits. Seek the demanding audience and you will experience how it hones your storytelling skills, maybe with a few scars and battle wounds along the way. Also, don't limit learning to your own storytelling. We've all been audiences. What did you like? What not? What would you have done differently? I often watch TED Talks, sometimes because of the topic, but just as often to learn from how the story is being told. This is how you evolve as a storyteller. Moving on to the next slide, which is on the narrative, the first of 3 storytelling elements. FP&A often have to translate large amounts of data into targeted storytelling. So how do you ensure the message is sufficiently crisp and captures the attention of the audience? You've probably heard of the elevator pitch before. If you want your elevator pitch to be successful, you need to leave the elevator with the other party either committing to action or having a decent enough understanding of the topic to be able to repeat it correctly to others. This means you only have a couple of minutes to convey the key points of your story and capture your audience. If you dive into details, the bigger picture will be lost, as will the attention of your audience. Less is more, but make sure the less is what is really important, not to you, but to the audience to ensure you get buy-in. If you do capture attention, no doubt your audience will want to join you on a journey into more details. Ask yourself, what is important to your audience and how much time do they have to consume the information? What does your audience already know and how do you best communicate with them? What are the messages you want to leave them with? Also, consider that different levels of the organization want or need different levels of detail, as illustrated by the simple pyramid on the right. Don't add details the audience is not interested in, and also don't assume your audience is familiar with the acronyms you're using. They may mean something different to them. Spell the acronym out the first time you use it. Remember to use simple, crisp statements. Don't overcomplicate the message with too much detail or too many words. Let's move on to visuals on the next slide. I've used visuals today. Did I need them? No, but they help to visualize the topic and the story, even if they may not have seemed directly connected to my story. Each visual hopefully planted a seed in your mind and enhanced your understanding of the story. If in doubt, test your visuals on someone else, your partner, a colleague, a friend, and check whether they understood your message and accompanying visuals. When selecting visuals, consider your audience. Do they prefer graphs, tables, or pictures? Do certain colors have hidden meanings? Red is bad, green is good, or vice versa? Should certain colors be avoided? In my company, for example, yellow and brown are not popular colors to use. And a final tip, avoid animations. Most executives do not like them. And finally, we move on to data on my last slide. You'll see that I've slipped in another visual here, hopefully making you think about data and lots of it. In your storytelling, are you using data to tell a story, or is the story about the data itself? 2 different ways of looking at data, each requiring a different approach to preparing the narrative and, more importantly, to preparing supporting visuals. When you're reviewing data, think about how you will tell the story. Visualize how the data can be presented. Think about your audience, and most importantly, what is relevant and important to them. In other words, plan ahead and don't forget your storyline. One final closing remark from me. Over the years, I've very often heard, mostly from non-finance colleagues, can you prepare some financials so we have a business case? A business case is not financials, and financials are not a business case. A true business case consists of a narrative, visuals, and data, each complementing each other to create a complete story. As FP&A, we create value by bringing all of these elements together to influence and drive change. That was my story for today. Hans, back to you.
Simon, thank you very much. Great of you to share all the challenges, and we all face them on a daily basis. And thank you for sharing the best practices, which is much more important. We resonate with everything you've said. Let us now hear from our member panelists on their vision and what they would like to add to your presentation. So if I may ask the panelists to join us with their webcam, and if I may go to James first of all, please, James, your comments.
Hi, Hans. Yes, excellent session, Simon. I think it's very important in terms of being very cognizant of who the audience is, whether it's a manager or the CEO of the business as well. It's really important for FP&A to translate the needs of the audience into a targeted story so that they can understand and take on board what you're explaining to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Muthu, if I may come to you, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simon. I agree with your point that less is more. Listen to the audience and take the feedback. I think these are very key points. Thanks for the great insights.
Thank you very much, Muthu. And finally, Michael.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Simon. I noted down 2-3 points. The first one, I couldn't agree more. We're actually interested in the story behind the numbers, not in the numbers themselves. I fully agree, because the stories are what we actually relate to and what will bring us to action, right? The numbers are really just figures. And you reminded me with your presentation also with on a conversation that I had with a customer, and he actually said the higher you get up in the hierarchy of an organization, the more you need storytelling, because the world gets so complex there. So you need good storytelling to get the message across, while in operational level, you don't need it, because people know the details in the very small area that they work on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, panelists, and Simon, thank you very much for a great presentation. Now that we've heard from you, Simon, let us hear from our attendees today, our member of the FP&A board, around what is the biggest barrier to effective FP&A storytelling. So please, if you can vote, what is the biggest barrier for effective FP&A storytelling? Is it poor quality of data? Is it outdated technology? Is it inadequate skills? D, is it lack of time? And E, is it not supportive business culture? If you can vote, please. So a reminder: A, poor quality of data; B, outdated technology; C, inadequate skills; D, lack of time; and E, not supportive business culture. If you can vote, please. I will give it another 5 seconds and I will close the poll right now. Thank you very much for voting, and I will share the results. So 26% say poor quality of data, 8% outdated technology, 31% inadequate skills, lack of time 22%, and 14% not supportive business culture. If I may ask Simon and James to just join me and give me some comments, please. Simon, can I come to you first?
Yes, not surprising, the outcome, I must say. Inadequate skills, definitely something I recognize on a daily basis. It's not for lack of trying, but it's sometimes trying too much, if you like, not keeping it short. And poor quality of data, I think we all struggle with data. We have plenty of it, but a challenge to know what is the right data to use for the storytelling. So not really surprised by any of this.
Thank you, Simon. And James, to yourself?
Yes, I would echo that as well. Poor quality of data is no big surprise. The skills as well. You know, maybe I would have thought that technology was also a stumbling block as well, but probably most of us are using Excel, so it could be that as well. Lack of time, that's personally the one I suffer from the most. If we don't get it, the data on time, then it's very hard to turn it into a very good message, and also a visualization and storytelling suffers as a result of that. So yes, it's all combined, and it's really important that we get more effective in our FP&A storytelling by limiting the poor results of this data and inadequate skills as well.
Absolutely. You know, on the point there, I would have thought outdated technology as well would have been key there. One member has sent a note saying potentially erratic audiences as well. And this is where it's very important to kind of know your audience. Of course, the audience is going to change all the time, so we've got to bear that in mind. So Simon and James, thank you very much for your comments. Let me just hide that now, and then we go and move on to our next element, which is on visualization. And presenting visualization, or the power of visualization, today is James Haley, who is VP Finance, European CFO at Midx. So James, over to yourself whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you very much, Hans. Yes, just maybe to briefly introduce Nidec Corporation. It's a Japanese headquartered manufacturer of electric motors. The motors are of various sizes, from very small motors to large generators and motors. Revenues of about 14 billion per annum, in operating in 40 countries with 111,000 employees. So it's a substantial business. Personally, I'm involved in a division that specializes in commercial and industrial motors. So this is all for all types of applications in the industrial area. I have a team of about 5 FP&A specialists, plus about 50 finance and controlling staff at various levels of the business units, factories, and commercial organizations. So today I would like to talk about the power of FP&I visualization. And on my first slide, I'm introducing the topic here as well. Yeah, so I've put in a brief quote here. Logic will get you from A to B. I kind of have a parallel that with accounting and finance, whereas imagination will take you everywhere. I think this is more the FP&A part of things. You need a lot of imagination to be able to visualize and to tell a good story. So what I've also come across in recent times is a very interesting book on the internet. It's actually free. It's from Nancy Duarte. It's called Resonate, and she really focuses in on a few important topics while using visualization, but also she really underlines the storytelling and screenwriting techniques as well. Obviously, it's all about being prepared, but you really have to understand your audience and make the audience the hero of the presentation, so that they come away with a very positive message and a very good understanding of the presentation or the story that you are telling them as part of the presentation. You really also need to take care that it's a very simple activity, not too much clutter, and also it's very, very important to practice. And as Simon was saying, use people that you can find before big presentations, so that you can practice that over and over again, so that it really comes across in a very crisp and effective way as well. On my next slide, I'm highlighting some of the more common issues. Really going back to the audience. Sometimes you don't understand the audience when you're going in. This is also something you can counteract by getting better advice from managers, etc., ahead of any preparation phase. Also, visualizations, as we're saying in other parts of this council as well, the visualization can add value and they can also be very, very good. But if you incorrectly choose visualization, you can destroy the message. You can also do that by having very busy slides and slides that are very difficult to understand as well. So you also need a good narrative as well. So that's the storytelling part of the presentation as well. Really work on that. I would suggest to change the presentation around as well, if it suits to tell the story a lot better as well. On the next slide, I'm talking about creating some value through the presentation as well. We also, really going on about the audience a lot here, because it's all about the audience. I have a lot of different audiences for different presentations that me and my teams are presenting to. We have to be very careful about what are we trying to impart, and will the audience understand the message? So sometimes it's very important to have very, very detailed information, say for a manager, but then as you go up the organization, you really have to summarize, but also make it easier to understand too. You must understand that some people in organizations, they may be looking at thousands of slides every week, and it's very hard for them to remember, but also sometimes to understand as well. So FP&A teams, very important visualization. I'm always getting told that we have to reduce the number of words on slides, and if the slides are too wordy, we really have to go back and visualize more. So visualization is the key. Like I was saying, understand the audience, create simple graphics. You can have lots of different excellent graphs and numbers, etc., and people get confused and lost in the slide as well. You want to really keep some of the graphics as simple as possible, so that they tell a story and not complicate the understanding as well. Also, if you're doing a lot of slides, then you really have to be careful about the sequencing, so that people don't get misled, or that they lose the thread of the thought of the story as well, or the presentation. And very important to remember that it's extremely hard to keep people's attention for any space of time. You really need to make sure that the slides are impactful and help so that they can remember the story as well. I will tell you a little story on the next slide, along with some practical recommendations as well. So, you know, it's all about really keeping it short and simple, having a good visualization, but also telling a story with a good narrative as well. And you can also help by allowing some of the graphics to speak for themselves as well. Sometimes people like to study the slides as well. Obviously, then it helps with some Q&A as well. The leveraging of the visualization is extremely important as well. I'll give you an example from some of our background. It's when we're talking to our chairman, it's extremely difficult sometimes because, you know, we have translators and things like that. So it's extremely important that the slides, both in English and Japanese, then are very visual, so that he can get the message without even reading too much. Obviously, there is lots of writing, etc. But if you have a very impactful slide, he's going to get the message. It's very helpful for us then to get approvals for different items. So when we're presenting, we're typically going for approval for big, large projects, i.e. maybe you're building a new plant, or you're trying to develop a new product that you want support on. If he's given a very good story, a very good logic to that, he finds it very easy to approve the project. If he doesn't understand it, he will shoot it down straight away. So it's extremely important for us at the preparation stage to understand how he's understanding and how he's actually being presented materials typically, so that we can help to also use those useful tips as well. And typically we practice that a lot. So before any chairman presentation, we will have prepared it and then practiced it about 3 times before we would actually get to present it to the chairman of NEDEC as well. And also then it's very important to keep it simple, exclude unnecessary visual elements as well. Sometimes it depends on the audience. Some people love lots of detail, but typically if you're it's a wider audience and it's some new topics, etc., it's very important to keep it simple and to not have it too cluttered. And my main message at the end is really to deliver the message extremely well, and beforehand to practice it a lot as well. So thank you very much for that, and I will hand it back to Hans again.
James, thank you very much. Know your audience is what resonates over and over again, and definitely in your presentation. Concentrating on those pearls, the 1 or 2 key thing that your audience need to know is the key thing as well for me. So thank you very much for that. I would ask the other members of the panel to come and join us and share with us some insight on James' presentation. So Simon, if I may come to you first, please.
Thank you, James. Some interesting insights there. I definitely recognize challenges of visualization. I've got experience with sometimes even the simplest of visual can change the understanding of a topic and make sure everybody gets aligned. I can only echo what you stated about avoiding cluttering slides with too much detail. As I stated earlier, less is more. It is really one of my mantras to keep on the less is more bandwagon. I agree with always checking your presentations with other storytellers just to make sure you're hitting the mark. And I liked your language issue that you had and how you solved that through visuals. It's a very good way to breach the language barrier.
Thank you very much, Simon. Muthu, can I come to yourself, please?
Yeah. Very good presentation, James. Thanks for that. And I completely agree with your point that we should keep the audience in mind, and we should make sure we don't present the same insights on the level of details to a CEO as well as CFO. So I think this is a very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Muthu. And Michael, finally to yourself.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Muthu just said. Know your audience. I would even go that far that mid-level management report and the board deck will have different reports, visualizations in it. And I would also add that it's not just the reports, but also the comments that you add in your storytelling in the reports will be different. We get to that later also in my session, but I think it's definitely different content and also different comments on the things that you show.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you very much, panelists. James, great presentation. Thank you very much. Let us now go to our audience and listen to what they have on our next polling question. But before we do that, I'd just like to remind the audience and that please send your questions via the chat box. We will answer all of your questions. We will answer a few of them today. If we can't, we will answer them via email. So please keep sending them. So our second poll for the day, which I've just launched, and you can see it now on your screen, is around which of the following statement is the best description for your current reports and dashboard. No consistency is option 1. All reports and dashboard look very, very different. Some departments have established some level of consistency. All reports and dashboards have to adhere to corporate design. Section 4 goes further and adhere to the corporate manual. And then finally, our reports have to be IBCS compliant, which is International Business Communication Standard, which is one of the leading standard on reporting. So please vote. I will give it another 5 seconds. We've got quite a few people voted already, and I will close the vote right now and share it with our members and the panelists. So 22% said no consistency at all. 54% have said some departments have established some level of consistency, which is the bulk of the people. 19% is adhere to corporate design, 5% to corporate manual, and only 1% to IBCS compliant. So if I may ask James and Muthu to join us and give us some insight. James, if I may start with yourself.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we're working a lot on consistency, uniformed. This also helps with the take up of the information from senior executives, because if you're working with, say, 12 business units, it's better to have very uniformed presentation as well. So this is key as well. Also, yes, reports, dashboards. I think that's more in larger corporations as well, where we have the night. You know, this is very, very important when you have big organizations that you do have that reports and dashboards adhere to corporate design as well. You know, the other parts are, yeah, I do try to minimize the lack of consistency. I think this is extremely annoying for managers. In order for them to take on the many presentation slides that they see, they do need consistency so that they can also see trends, but also differences, and that they can actually work with what they're seeing as well. Because typically they don't have time to study them up front. So they're really looking at them live, they're studying them live, and they're making commentary on them live as well. So it's extremely important for them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And Muthu, can I come to yourself for a quick comment, please?
Yeah, thank you, Hans. And I think this poll results, no surprise. Some of the departments have established some level of consistency, yes. But at the same time, I want to add one more point that For example, when we present the insights to the segment level or business level, then it doesn't usually come with the corporate design or the manual, because there is a difference between what is actually design or layout, but at the same time giving the insights in a different way. So I think both are different topics. So I think the bringing new insights to the business as well as to the corporate, I think that should be more flexible. So that is also, I think I can see that the design is 19% vote. That means that we have some differences, or we have some freedom to change things. And there is no surprise that IBCS compliant. I think that's very rare that people go with that. Yeah. Thank you, Hans. That's for my. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Great insight there from both of you. Let me now hide this and we move on to the next section of our meeting, which is value creation. And to tell us about value creation, we've got Muthu Duriasamy, Director, Global Controlling Corporate Finance at Coty. So Muthu, the stage is yours. Ready when you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Hans. And good evening, everyone. I'm Muthu Duriasamy, working as a Director, Global Controlling at Coty. Coty is a US listed company that manufactures and distributes cosmetic and fragrances. It owns several brands. Some of the well-known brands are Gucci, Hugo Boss, Max Factor, etc. Coty is also #1 in fragrances. And today I'm going to talk about how we actually create value through storytelling. So what is actually value creation? So value creation is not just increasing the profitability, but also identifying the opportunities and risk. Why FP&A as a team can do it? Because FP&A is the function which supports data-driven decision-making as well as futuristic in its approach. The quality of insights provided by FP&A helps the management to take right decision at the right time. So how can we actually do it? As you all know, data is the key driver, and FP&A can bring more insights by creating meaningful dashboards. It should be as in-depth as possible, but like Simon said, don't get lost in details. Focus is more important. It is a step-by-step approach. It needs continuous changes and fine-tuning, so don't get frustrated. Develop, learn and correct mindset, which is important. Automate as much as possible and avoid manual intervention. This will give us more time for us, as well as motivate us to look into the insights. Michael has an excellent story after this presentation on how his company can help us. Please keep it as lean as possible, because this dashboard can also be used by non-finance colleagues like sales and operations. As James said, we should keep our audience in mind, which is important. If your organization is not only a product company, try to split your dashboard into products, services, solution, or project business separately. This will actually increase transparency. Some of the practical examples are coming in the next slide. Most of the time, what we miss is what are the facts, what we have to drive. One dashboard accelerated our profitability. Here is the story. We have developed a funnel overview of sales, margin, and cost. What is actually funnel overview? It is nothing but shows a summary of insights, at the same time deep dive into the product level. It created transparency on volume mix, that is optimum quantity of a product to achieve our targeted profitability. Price changes, channel mix, that is which OEM or partner is accelerating our profitability. Regional mix and Forex impact. We also developed cost analytics by breaking it down to different elements such as material, labor, allocated cost, so on and so forth. And deep dived into the product level, channels, and regions. We have not only compared the year-over-year changes, but also the quarter-over-quarter. It gave us better insights. So what are the outcomes of this exercise? Some of them are, number one, process optimization. We have identified lack of transparency in pricing rollouts, especially the time gap in implementing the price changes in the regions. So we have fixed it through better rollout plans. Number two, risk mitigation. Some of our contracts were long-term and didn't allow us to increase the price. We have renegotiated it and made it short-term contracts, which also makes more sense during the unstable economic situations. Number 3, opportunities. Freight and import duty increased drastically, which actually made us to explore different options. We found new opportunities like switching to subcontracting and assembly in the regions itself. And number 4, elimination. We have identified higher margin products are not necessarily profitable, or they are not improving our EBITDA due to lack of right quantity. At the same time, it increased the complexity as well as the tax implication. Hence, we have realigned the product portfolio strategy and stopped selling those products in some of the regions. On my next slide, you can see how we transformed this story into value. We didn't just stop with the recommendation, but converted them into a business case with a solutions mindset. At the same time, we made sure these business cases are sustainable and not a short-term fix. How to convert these recommendations to a business case? Collaborate and be a business partner, which is important. Make non-finance colleagues to understand that finance colleagues are here to help, so sit with them and find the right solution. Explain the pros and cons clearly and find a common ground. Build the trust that this solution saves their time, so bring innovative and convincing solutions. What has actually changed? We have started addressing the insights with solutions approach. Finance colleagues improved their collaboration with the business through continuous dialogues. We have implemented lean processes. We have also developed agile and predictive rolling forecasts. These are some of the transformation we did. What have we learned from this exercise? Finance colleagues are not just to challenge the status quo, but also to explore the solution with the business. Most of the time, consciously or unconsciously, we as a finance colleague just ask questions, forget the fact that sales and operation is to develop the business and fix the operational issues rather than deep diving our reports. So please bear this in mind. We should also keep it in mind that this is a continuous effort and not just a one-time activity. We also had some of the other benefits out of this dashboard. Everyone was on the same page, so we stopped circulating a lot of reports and we looked into one dashboard. This detailed current overview also helped the sales and operations team to forecast better. This also evolved better commercial goals as well as action-oriented performance culture. I hope these insights helps you further. Thanks for your time. Hands back to you.
Great example here, Muthu, of how you use visualization and FP&A storytelling to get value out of all the different departments and business unit you have just described. So thank you very much for that. I would like to invite the other members of the panel to come and join us and give us their insight into your presentation too. So Simon, if I may start with yourself, please.
Yes, thanks, Muthu. Particularly like your example of creating a single dashboard containing key drivers, remembering, however, that not all drivers are key. In other words, focus on the most impactful drivers of performance and success, always seek input from users. You demonstrated through your story that the success of storytelling relies on cross-functional involvement, which I believe is essential for the success of a story. You involved other functions who brought a broader or different angle to the story to ensure that you created value. So thanks for the insights.
Thank you. James, can I come to yourself, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Muthu. Fantastic presentation. I think there was very good examples of adding value through the storytelling, FP&A and dashboards. And also I like the way you link that to the business partnering as well, which I think is fundamental then at the end of it to really help the business towards its goals as well. So thank you very much.
And finally, Michael.
Thanks a lot, Muthu. I really liked your presentation. Your 3 questions, the what, the why, and the how reminded me actually on how I look at finance reports. What is going well or wrong, right? That's always what I want to answer when I look at a report. Then the why, well, what's the explanation? Why is it going wrong, or where are we overperforming? And the how, finally, how do we fix it? Because I think in the storytelling, the last important step is to come up with suggestions. I fully agree also with the points that you made about automation is key, which of course I want to tell stories about later with software. And finally, I fully agree also that finance can solve the whole story. The challenges need to be solved together with the business.
Members of the panel, thank you very much. Muthu, thank you very much for a great presentation there and talking to us about value in FP&A storytelling and visualization. Let us now hear from our attendees today with our next polling question. So ladies and gentlemen, a quick reminder once again to please send your questions via the chat box and please direct them to our presenters. So our next question to you is, just been launched, on what task are you spending the majority of your time? A, on data reconciliation and reporting, B, on analyzing and interpretation of data, and C, on storytelling and business partnering. If you can vote, please, that would be great. So again, A, on data reconciliation and reporting, B, on analyzing and interpretation of data, C, on storytelling and business partnering. I will give it another 5-10 seconds. If you can vote, please, that would be great. I can see we've got 65% voted already, and that I will now close the poll and share it. So 52% have said on data reconciliation and reporting, 37% on analyzing and interpretation of data, and 12% on storytelling and business partnering. So if I may ask my fellow panelists to come and join us and give us their insight on what we're seeing here. Muthu and Michael, please, if you can join us. And to start off with, Muthu, please.
Thank you, Hans. I think data reconciliation and reporting, maybe I think that also may be a concern, but I don't see that as a main concern in many of my companies where I worked. But analyzing and interpretation of data, I think this is one of the key points, because this is where we miss or misinterpret the data, and then the actions would go wrong, you know. So I think that way analyzing and interpreting data is more important for me. And even though storytelling and business partnering is 12%, but still that is also one of the key, because that is where you the insights are brought into the management for approval and further action. So I think the pool is right, but yeah, things should work out in a different way. Yeah, thank you, Hans.
Thank you. And Michael, your comment, please.
Yeah, big thumbs up, Hans, on how I find an excellent polling question, because it is structured in the process of what should happen, right? First, you work on the reconciliation and prepare the reporting, then you analyze in your reports the data, and then finally you should do the storytelling. So I really like the question and the options. I would just like to see a different focus here, because I think the Champions League, if you like, would be to have a focus on the last part, because that's how you sell your message.
Great answer there, both of you. Thank you very much for that. Let me now hide this, and we move on to the last part of our presentation, which is on technology. And to do that, we have Michael, who's head of FP&A product management at Unit 4. Michael, over to you. Ready when you are.
Thanks a lot, Hans. Well, how can technology help us in reporting and storytelling? I want to give you a lot of practical advice and examples and talk you through what software can actually do and support you. If we proceed to the first example that I brought with me, this is actually a report that's according to the IBCS standard. What do we see on the screen? It's basically a P&L with the main account groups of the profit and loss statement. And we compare the current year with the previous year. The IBCS standard stands for International Business Communication Standards. And if you ever get across an opportunity to listen to, for example, Dr. Feist giving a speech about the standard, take the opportunity. It's a nonprofit organization that is fully dedicated on, well, finding what the right notation, standards, and structures of financial reports should look like. My personal approach always to reports is it's a really good report if you look at it and it immediately tells you a story when you can start talking immediately about it. So even though it's just mini visualizations and mini lines that you see here, you basically can tell a story about every major P&L position compared to the previous year. The next example is a very similar visualization, again, according to the IBCS standard, but just that you get a flavor. There are different options, of course. It's again the P&L with positive and negative deviations. Color is very important and has always a meaning, right? So green or red is always telling you a story just by looking at it. The next example, again, a different visualization, in this case on material costs. And next to the different visualization, what we add here, you see to the right, is the commenting piece. And with the commenting in an FP&A software piece, the actual storytelling starts, because now the collaboration starts and you collect feedback from people, how they react to the figures, how do they explain the deviations that we see. The next example shows a waterfall, and the waterfall is per se, I think, a very good tool in order to visualize data, because again, it tells you a story. In this case, you have again 12 months, and they show what months showed positive results and which did not. Again, with the option to the right to comment and collaborate. While the examples so far have focused a lot on the IBCS standard, that you get really practical examples, what it looks like, the next example is from the modern world, if you like, using dashboards. If we proceed to the next one, I want to focus on the green left widget that you see here, which is showing the revenues of an organization. The rendering here is, of course, in PowerPoint poor, but I just want to get across the message. You could now interactively zoom into this chart, which is a great opportunity that dashboards offer. So if you click on a certain element, you zoom into the details. And if we go into one more detail, that's just 3 mouse clicks, which are usually nicely rendered. You again can immediately tell the story. Those revenues for a certain state, almost 50% of them were performed by a salesperson, Olaf Steiner. So no further explanation needed. You can immediately tell the story. The next example actually comes from the retail industry and uses a waterfall combined with business logic. Let me give you a short introduction. To the very left, you see the personnel cost ratio that we had in the budget. The personnel cost ratio is a key driver in the retail industry, and is the ratio of personnel costs and revenues. To the left, we see the budget number in the gray bar. To the very right, we see the actuals. And with the bars in between, we get the explanation why, in our case, we did not meet the budget numbers with the actuals. So obviously you now know that a higher personnel cost ratio is usually not a good thing. And without being an expert of the retail industry or any of the business logic that was applied in the background here, there's one substantial red area which gives the explanation, the hourly workforce, which means for this reporting period, obviously, this store or this business unit has applied more hourly workforce than was originally planned in the budget. The next example is a classic FP&A example. If you run simulations, I always say, don't forget about P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. And those are just, the first one is a visualization of a waterfall for the P&L used in a scenario simulation. If we move to the next one. Perfect. That's a P&L visualization where you compare your original base case budget with, for example, a COVID simulation, and you immediately see in this very condensed visualization where your P&L got hit the hardest. And in a fully integrated FP&A system, ideally, you would then immediately jump to your waterfall on the next one for your cash flow and see where do you run into issues with your cash flow statement. If we go to the last section, that's actually the Champions League, the storytelling. Ultimately, the true goal would be that reading finance reports in a system would be much more like reading a newspaper. If we move to this first example that I have here, this would be the starting page for the board where they can virtually go into the system and have prepared their stories. If we go to the next one, they could go to the management summary and find really condensed text explaining what went well, what was wrong, what do we need to do, what are the actions, and some supporting visualizations. We actually have a customer that I always think about when I look at those samples, and they have roles officially called the storytellers, if you like. What they do is when they have their business unit reporting, those storytellers read through the comments, through the details, and then they prepare the board deck when they put together such a visualization for the board members. I usually then call them the storytellers, or another term would be the FP&A journalists. The last example, just to finish off, is again such a visualization with more details when you flip through your virtual newspaper. And with that, back to you, Hans.
Wow, what great visuals, and how software can help and technology can help us in our FP&A storytelling and visualization. Thank you very much for that, Michael. Great to see that. Can I ask the panelists to join us now and give us some insight from them on these presentation, please? So if I may start with yourself, Simon.
Sure. Thank you, Michael. Really some interesting visualizations, compelling story. I recognize some of the trends on the increased application of self-service reporting, where even novices can create multiple views of the same data, create their own reports, create their own visuals. We're transitioning in the same direction in FedEx to allow our FP&A teams to focus on understanding the story. So trying to move to the Champions League, as you call it. So moving forward. Taking technology to the next level, we obviously got natural language generation, which can be used to create these automated basic commentaries to bring a bit more life to the data for the self-service user. However, I did like your point on the FP&A journalists or storytellers who play an important role in providing the in-depth insights on the what, why, and how. That's a skill we still can't replace with robots yet. Thank you.
James, can I come to yourself, please, for some comments?
Sure. Thank you, Michael. Yes, it was a very interesting presentation. Amazing visualizations, and also to look at the possibility of automating some of the major analysis there as well, and also then in turn some of the descriptive analysis as well. So it's a huge opportunity for organizations going forward. It's probably something we ourselves need to investigate too, and I think it would be a major benefit to everybody in my team and other teams around our organization as well. Thank you very much.
Muthu, if I may come to you finally, please.
Yes, Jan. It's a great tool, Michael, and especially the simulation and scenario planning are the one many of the companies are looking into as a next step for their FP&A function. I like my favorite slide is this newspaper. I think I like this one as well as I completely agree with Simon that I think writing the comments is the one which we couldn't really replace so far. And I think it gives both the sides that newspaper for the executives at a very high level overview, at the same time deep diving and analysis for the frontline finance colleagues. So it serves both the things. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists, and Michael, thank you very much for very exciting presentation. Thank you very much. Let us now move on and hear from our members of the FP&A board and attendees today on which of the following tools you are using predominantly for your current FP&A visualization and storytelling. If you can vote, please. So again, the question is, which of the following tools you predominantly use for current FP&A visualization and storytelling processes? A, is it Excel? B, is it an FP&A software? C, is it still ERP system, BI tools, or is it PowerPoint? If you can vote, please, that would be excellent. And the number of votes are really ramping up very, very quickly. So we already have 65% voted, another few seconds, and I am going to close the voting. So there we go, and I'm going to share the results. So 32% have said it is still in Excel, 40% PowerPoint, 18% BI tools, 8% ERP software, sorry, FP&A software, and 2% are talking ERP. If I can come back to our panelists, Muthu and Michael, for their comments, please. So Michael, if I may start by yourself.
Sure. To be honest, not surprised. I think that there's still a long way to go also for FP&A software to take this spot. And I think in this visualization you see or you get a feeling also about the inefficiencies, right? Because from the PowerPoint presentations, you can visualize already that there's a lot of data, getting data from one system to another system, and then finally put it into PowerPoint, which is a lot of inefficiencies in the process to actually come up with the final reports and the stories. So I think we still have some way to go. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And Muthu, can I come to yourself, please?
I completely agree with Michael. I think we have a long way to go in this process, especially the Excel is a surprise, of course, and the PowerPoint, we definitely use PowerPoint all the time, but FP&A software is, I think it's more predominantly now people are realizing that they need it, and I think I can see at least that it is in progress. So definitely BI tool is one of the I think great tool which I think many of the companies are using even today. So I think this gives the reality. Yes. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you very much, both. Thank you very much for that. Let me hide this, and then we now move on to our next session. Before we go on to the key takeaways, again, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick reminder that you can send your question, keep sending them till the end of the presentation and the end of the session. We will attempt to answer them. Those we haven't been able to, we will answer them via email, so please do so. Members of the panel, if you can join us now, it's a good time for our key takeaways, the key conclusion. So what is that one key conclusion element that you would like to share with the panel today on your story, again, story about storytelling and visualization in FP&A? So Simon, if I may come to you, please.
Thank you. My key takeaway, I think, is think about your audience when preparing your storytelling. Each audience has different needs. Listen, learn, adapt based on feedback. General rule is always less is more. Focus on what's important, not to you, but the audience. and don't clutter story with less relevant details.
Thank you very much, Simon. James, can I ask for your key takeaway, please?
I think my main takeaway is really to really practice this whole storytelling topic as well. You really need to test it within the organization also, and use what works then as well, but you can adapt it and you get better and better at this over time as well. So it's really something you have to really put some effort into it, but then it's also to practice it to make it into a very good process for everybody, including yourself, and for your own career as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mutu, can I come to yourself, please?
Yes, my key takeaway for today is I think the dashboard or the presentation that should be precise and clear instead of having too many things on it. And it also should bring the key insights so that the management can go with the further action on it. I think that is my key takeaway for today. Thank you.
Finally, Michael, yourself?
I have two, Hans. The first one is a short one. Choose the right FP&A software to support you. I think there's a lot how you can profit as an organization. And the second one is about the storytellers. For organizations on the one side, I think if you enable such career paths, I think that will be helpful. And on the other hand, I would say also that this is an interesting opportunity for people in finance and also in the business. If you are a good storyteller, as we've learned, you would find deviations, issues, and give recommendations. So it's one of the best ways how you can present yourself also to senior management in the company, and could be a good push for your career.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we move on to the next session, which is the Q&A session. I've got some exciting questions, lots and lots of questions. And our first question goes to Simon. Simon, one of the questions I have is my leader loves data, tables with too much information. I prefer visuals myself, which tells the story better. How do I strike that balance between the two?
It's an interesting dilemma because we do want to try and keep the story clean. I've experienced it myself. You have some leaders who probably with an analyst background who've gone up through the ranks, like all the details, want to get there. I think it's probably a gradual change. Slowly introduce less detail, more visuals. If you do it every time you give an update, then maybe the individual won't notice that you've actually changed the way that you're presenting. But it's a difficult transition, and some recipients just don't want to move away from the details. So do it gradually, step by step, and hopefully you'll get to the right level of detail for the audience eventually.
And also, Simon, a quick one there. Is there any key thing in terms of standardizing some of the reports, corporate manuals, etc., that could be brought in terms of trying to minimize that?
Yes, I mean, it depends who's writing the manual. If it is the CEO who likes the detail, they'll typically have an influence on the manual and say we need a lot of detail in the reports. It depends also on the size of the corporation. Within FedEx, we do have standards as to what the report content should look like, etc. We obviously have a branding, but at the end of the day, it's the individual storyteller who decides the level of detail and can manage that, because I don't think anybody writes a policy or report on what the size or the content of a report should be. It's really up to the storyteller to decide and evaluate case by case what is the best way to present the story.
Thank you very much, Simon. Great answers there. So our second question goes to James. James, of course, you've given us a great insight on visualization. What is enough in terms of visualization, do you think? Is there any rule of thumb, do you think? What is your thought?
A hard and fast rule, it's quite hard to put it. It depends on the context, really. I try to keep it in a concise way. Like Simon was saying, you really need to get people used to seeing a similar set of slides over time, and then you can gradually change that as well. I don't see any kind of one size fits all for every situation. You'll have different situations like business plans, etc. You know, some people will do it maybe for a business unit in 10 slides. Other people will take 20. What we try to do is, personally, what I try to do is really define carefully with management ahead of presentations to really define how much do they want, how long will the presentation take, so that then you can tailor the presentation to the needs of that audience. But it really depends case by case. There's no real very exact rule of thumb on that.
Thank you very much, James. Great answer there. Thank you very much. And our next question goes to Mutu. Mutu, how do you differentiate between presentation for standalone reading sometime and pure presentation purposes? So presentation that people can take away and pure presentation itself. How do you strike that balance and differentiate with it?
This is an excellent question, actually, because I think Simon has highlighted during his presentation that when it comes to business case, it is definitely a standalone, and it's only for that scenario. So what we have to decide, I think that should be, I think that we should have a freedom to present and not stick to one format or something. But at the same time, when it comes to I think when it comes to the standard FP&A story, I think that should be standardized one, as well as it should be in detail, more detail. So obviously, I think we need to have different sets based on the scenario as well as the whom we present. I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for that. Yeah, yes, you have indeed, and thank you for the answer. Question to Michael. Michael, of course, using a tool, how do you balance visualization with detailed reporting? Visualization could hide some of the facts that could be important. How would you deal with that?
Well, I would come back to the journalists, right, and push it all in their direction. That's their job, right? And this. The story that I like to tell here is it's not always just about the big deviations that you look for. Even sometimes small deviations from what you originally planned might be very interesting. So you're basically really digging for the gold nuggets, where you see a positive deviation in a consulting organization, a consulting team, because they do something differently, suddenly picks up, has a great utilization, a product takes off somewhere. So you need to really dig deep to find it and then tell the story. I don't think there's any rule of thumb here. It's really, and that's why I see such great opportunities for those people, being the journalists. They need to run the details and find the gold nuggets.
Yeah, great answer there. And again, back to the quote that I went to, so you need to look for those pearls, isn't it? You need to find out what is key for that audience anyway. It cannot be everything, so we cannot hide that. I've got one good question for the whole panelists here, which I would like to share, and it is around, would you please comment on the specific skills for FP&A professionals to need to improve on becoming better storytellers and therefore better business partners? So what do you think is maybe the 2 or the 3 key skills you would like to highlight? Simon, if I may come to you, please.
Difficult question, because I think that's, if I look at some of the responses we had also for the polling question, the skill is really where we have the lack, if you like. There's a gap in FP&A in general. The skill is about listening, I think, really listening to what it is that you need to deliver a message on. Typically, we get instructions in some shape or form, an ask or otherwise, and then listening to what it is the audience is looking for and making sure that whatever we're presenting responds to that ask. I think that's probably one of the key skills. Storytelling is about telling a story, but a good storyteller listens to what the audience is asking for. I think that for me is one of the key skills we should be looking for.
Thank you. And James, can I come to you, please?
Yes, I think it's also one of the main skills is to have an interest in the business as well. It's not, you really have to understand why we're doing all of this. It's always to improve the business and to help the business to achieve its strategy as well. So a natural inquisitiveness and interest in the business, I think, is critical as well. Lots of other things can be learned, but if you have that, I think it's a core requirement.
Thank you, James. Muthu, what will it be for yourself?
I think I also agree with James, as well as the personality itself should be curious and ready to learn new business and new things. I think that is more important, so that without understanding the business, it doesn't really make sense to just looking at the number as a number. I think the business acumen is definitely an important point, and the personality also should be curious enough and keep learning. I think even if you become a head of FP&A, it also needs learning. So you can't just stop learning. So I think that's more important for me. Yeah.
And finally, Michael.
I would say you need to be passionate about the business, right? Because you need to understand how the business works, how you can make it better ultimately. So a clear understanding and passion for the business, passionate about data. I think it's hard without that. This journalist mentality that I meant, this investigating, searching for answers, that's for sure a key skill. And also creativity, I would say, because if you go all the way with the storytelling, the last step is finding solutions, finding answers, and making suggestions. And there, I think also creativity is a very good skill to have.
Thank you. I have a very interesting question that I want to put to the panel, but a quick answer, please, will be great. So what would be the next 3 steps, do you think, in the analytical transformation for storytelling? How do we get on to do it? Simon, can I come to yourself?
Yeah, I think more consistent data quality it seems to be the key challenge across the board. Everywhere we've got plenty of data, we've got technology, but consistent data quality is the next step towards storytelling.
James, what would it be for you?
Yes, I think it's the data quality, but also the speed of data as well. I don't know, speaking from personal experience, it's really about the turnaround of closings, etc., and also the ability of our teams to forecast. This is probably my main bottleneck. Like Simon saying, lots of data, etc. However, management want always the latest and greatest, so it's important to have fresh data to move the discussions forward as well. So it's always a big challenge. And then that, like we saw in the question time, the storytelling and the business partnering always suffers then, because we spend so much time gathering and analyzing, etc. So I think what Michael was saying was extremely on point. If we can use technology to speed up that process, we can always add more value then towards the end of the process as we come to that storytelling and presentation phase.
Thank you, James. Muthu, for yourself?
For me, I think simulation and the scenario planning should be the next step, because we can see that due to the COVID situation or any economic downtrend, we are unable to predict well. So I think the scenario planning and simulation is the way forward.
And finally, Michael?
I would say agree on and implement reporting standards. That's a huge step per se, but a good one. Get support from FP&A software and find those journalists within your company. And if you haven't found them yet, help them develop.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, panelists. I've got a last few slides to move on to, and then we will conclude our session here. Just a reminder, the next few events that we have, and we've got links here so you can click on to those in your slides and take you straight to there. So how to manage uncertainty with FP&A predictive analytics for May the 12th. Please join us. We also have the art and science of digitize FP&A business partnering, XP&A business partnering, another word for that. That's on May the 25th. And finally, what does it involve to move to the digital and data-driven FP&A on June the 10th, 2021. So please join us for that one as well. Finally, it's a good time to thank our sponsors today for making this possible. So Unit 4, thank you very much. Robert Half, thank you very much. FP&A Trends, thank you very much. Member of Esteemed Panel, thank you absolutely very much for all the insight and all the insight you gave us via the questions as well. So thank you very much for all your hard work in putting this together with me. And finally, member of the FP&A board and the attendees, thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much for giving us insight on all of these polling questions. I hope this has been very contributive to you as well. And finally, the slide for how you could keep in touch with us. So keep in touch, join FP&A Trends, and keep talking about FP&A. Just before I close the meeting for today, I would just like to remind you guys, when I do close it, there's the feedback session. So please do stay and give us feedback on how we did today and what we could talk about in the future. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending. I hope you had a great session, and goodbye from all of us. Have a great evening and see you in the next session. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.